So I have a relative that every 10 minutes is like, oh, I'm on the such and such diet. And then the next day is like, oh, I heard about this diet. I'm doing this diet. And then it's back to Weight Watchers. And then it's the next diet.
Today we have the privilege of talking with Gina Goodgame again about diets and food as spiritual practices that help us live well and fulfill our callings well. The other day, Gina, I was at a bookstore and I noticed and took pictures of, there were 4 bookshelves, each with about 3 or 4 shelves of tons of different books on various diets, various new information based on the latest studies about food. And for me, that's a little overwhelming because I want to know what really is healthy, and they're all claiming the latest research and scientific backing. Help me out here. What am I to eat?
Did you find the one on chocolate chip cookies?
No.
Because you can get 4 cookies a day.
That's a diet I can get behind.
So I agree with you, Kris. There is a lot. Even as a dietitian, it's difficult to be in this field because there's always books coming out or new products or new trends or the next fix is just always there around the corner. So the solution is to figure out what works for you. Some people might feel better eating a heavier meat diet, and some people feel better not eating meat at all. Some people feel better eating a low-fat diet. Some people function better on a high-fat diet. So there's also some self-awareness that comes in that. Is maybe if you choose a diet at the bookstore and you say, hey, this is the way I'm going to go, then stick with it and be consistent if you feel good on it. But consistency is a key. So I have a relative that every 10 minutes is like, oh, I'm on the such and such diet. And then the next day is like, oh, I heard about this diet. I'm doing this diet. And then it's back to Weight Watchers. And then it's the next diet. And so if you're one of those people, you need to be self-aware that you're one of those people. And so when the next diet comes out and you're like, ooh, then you're trying to do a quick fix. And quick fixes just don't work. It's exactly what it is, a quick fix. If it's a 500 calorie a day diet, then that's not sustainable for life. If it eliminates 4 food groups, that's also not sustainable for life. But finding something that's balanced, that is that you're able to sustain and do and I heard you say, I just want something I can do for 20 years. So that is coming in contact again with what we're eating and also why we're eating. Those 2 things together.
Well, before we go to the why or even how we're eating, let's stay with what for just a minute longer. And so I hear you saying that we need to learn from ourselves, our bodies, what works for us. And I know you'll get to some principles in just a minute that help us choose what to eat. But say a little bit more. I mean, does it matter if I eat a low carb or a low fat diet? I mean, is one better than the other?
It's interesting that you say that because there was a Harvard study that just recently came out. I think it was in 2018, so not that recent, but where they studied 2 groups. There was a low-fat group that ate 20 grams of fat a day, and then there was a low-carb diet that ate 20 grams of carbohydrate a day. And they did that for 8 weeks, and then at the end of 8 weeks, they segued into a balanced diet, which would be heavy on vegetables, with fruit, not heavy on fruit, but with fruit, limited flours, lean meats, reducing the amount of processed foods that come in a package, foods that have lots of sugar, that are chemically modified foods. And they, at the end of the year, they'd each lost an average of 12 pounds, both the low-fat and the low-carb diet. And in that, they also did some behavior principles, which was what was also interesting about the study, that there was also a component that addressed the reasons that they might be eating outside of hunger, which I think is also very important to integrate into nutrition.
So in some ways, the study, how do you interpret that study? Because both of them lost about 12 pounds. In a way, it didn't matter.
Right.
Or it depends on their bodies.
I think in both groups, they learned to eat balanced meals. They limited foods that were refined. They were aware of reasons for eating aside from hunger, and they were consistent in their approach. And so I think that if we do that, whether it's you're vegetarian or you want to be vegan, and that's okay if you want to be vegan and you're practicing that diet and you're consistent and you're eating within your realms of being hungry and full, then that's perfectly fine. And if you want to be a carnivore and just eat meat, as long as you're getting some vitamins in there somewhere with some vegetables, then so be it. If you're able to maintain a healthier weight, then how you get there is can be a lot of different approaches.
So now I've heard you talk about different principles that help you summarize some of the basics for healthy eating. Could you tell me some of those?
So I say low to the ground, fruits and vegetables, limited refined grains. So that's anything that's been processed. So finding, maybe you eat Ezekiel bread that's in the freezer section that is a sprouted grain, or you choose a whole grain bread, or you choose to make your own bread or do a sourdough that you've made. And then if it has a label, then you need to look at it. So that comes back to if it's a vegetable, it doesn't have a label. But if it does have a label, then you need to read it. How many ingredients does it have? Can you pronounce them? Do you know what they all are? It also means you need to double check with the portion size, because sometimes it's a package and you think, oh, well, it's fine because it's healthy, it's gluten-free, and you eat the whole bag. And really, just because it says gluten-free on it doesn't mean that it's calorie-free or that it's perfectly nutritious. So if it has a label, then you need to double check. So those are kind of, it's very simple philosophies of, heavy on the fruits and vegetables, moderate fruit, lean proteins, if you choose to eat meat, chicken, beef, fish. One other thing I didn't mention was fats also. I think that can be confusing with the low carb, high fat. And again, fat's not a bad thing. Same thing like gluten. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's the quality of it. So avocados, walnuts, almonds, those kinds of fats are good for you. They have omega-3s. They're good for brain health, salmon. The fats that aren't good for us are modified vegetable oils. Vegetable oils in general, things that are in the packaged foods, in fast food, in deep fat fried food. So fats aren't inherently bad. I just wanted to address those issues. So when you are choosing to eat fats, just make sure that they come from real food and not modified food.
Great, thank you. Now, you also addressed just a slight shift in subject, not just what we eat, but also how we eat. Mm-hmm. Talk to us about that a little bit.
I think more important even than the what is often the why.
That's a big statement. More important than the what is the why.
I think so, because we aren't aware oftentimes of why we're eating. And if we're aware of why we're eating, that might change what we eat. Okay. So it's kind of addressing that first thing before addressing the second. Am I lonely? Am I sad? Am I tired? Am I bored? Am I hungry? That's kind of funny because we do eat when we're hungry. That's kind of the natural thing. But if we're too hungry, then we tend to overeat on less nutritious foods. So it is coming back to that piece of, why am I doing what I'm doing? So am I in a frantic pace that I'm trying to multitask and knock out some work while I'm on the computer, and I'm eating this granola bar, but I didn't register that I just ate that 200 calories, and then it's time for lunch, or I'm so unsatisfied that calorie counted, but it didn't really count because you never even felt it go down your body. You didn't taste it, you didn't hardly chew it. And so those are the kinds of things around the whys, is taking that time to pause and to say, hey, am I hungry? Or am I eating because I just saw a commercial and that looked really good? Or I just walked in the door and I'm tired from the neck up and I'm standing in front of the pantry thinking that's going to find my solution.
So just one last time, if you could summarize your primary principles, in light of all the different diets that are out there and the information, it sounds like you've got a core that you live by that sounds like would kind of permeate many of the diets that I'm aware of. Mm-hmm. And that have some history to them to help us eat well for the long haul.
Right.
Could you summarize those for us?
So low to the ground in whole form. So that would be the fruits and vegetable piece of it. The whole grains, which addresses the limited refined flours, reducing packaged foods, and read the labeling and the portion size, and then healthy fats. So being aware of where we're getting those unhealthy fats from as well. So those would be my principles.